Something else that I wanted to talk about, some news in the Krystal Kyle Friends podcast arena, is the fact that I guess they were going to have Jordan Peterson on their show, but not anymore. He bailed on them. This is pretty funny. I didn't even know that Jordan Peterson was scheduled to be on the Krystal Kyle podcast, but now I'm a little disappointed that it won't happen because I do think that would have been a pretty fascinating conversation, despite my very vehement disagreements with Jordan Peterson. I would have enjoyed to hopefully see a bit of a lively discourse or debate there. Obviously I would have really hoped to just watch him get destroyed, which is probably why he eventually backed out, because he was afraid of that happening. But let's take a look at this clip from Kyle Kalinski's Secular Talk channel where he addresses this situation.
So I told you guys on this show a number of times and on Krystal Kyle and Friends last week that Jordan Peterson was scheduled to come on this week. We've had this plan since mid-December. Krystal read both of his newer books in preparation, 12 Rules for Life and 12 More Rules for Life, in preparation for talking to him. I watched...
By the way, I can't imagine reading both of Jordan Peterson's books in preparation for anything. That sounds fucking terrible.
Yeah, I would have gone with the Kyle route.
Yeah, exactly. But either way, I feel for Krystal having, toiled through both of those volumes, dense texts, only for it all be for nothing. So yeah, sorry. Let's watch the rest of this.
Over a dozen hours of his lectures, specifically his 2017 lecture series. It's on psychology and philosophy. I also watched a lot of his interviews, his most famous interviews, and some that are maybe even off the beaten path a little bit. Well, unfortunately, we were informed yesterday that he can't do the podcast. We were going to discuss everything. We're going to discuss psychology and philosophy. And on that front, we may actually agree a lot more than people might think. But we were, of course, going to get into politics and economics and religion. And on that front, we'd almost certainly disagree. He also floated that he wanted to discuss sex and gender with us because I guess he knew that we're on the left, and so he thought maybe that would be interesting to get into. We were more than willing to do that. We were informed that Jordan has upcoming travel and a forthcoming months-long speaking tour, so he needs time to prepare and rest. We followed up with his assistant who informed us of this and, asked to reschedule, but we're told it's too far out to lock anything in, but maybe sometime around June.
This is how you know it's not going to happen.
Look, it's a real shame that it fell through. I've heard him mention a number of times that he wants to talk to intelligent leftists and, not just pink-haired college kids who their main concern is deplatforming conservative speakers. And look, this was an opportunity to do exactly that. Hopefully, eventually...
Let's just pause that right here because I want to make it clear to everyone, and I don't think that Kyle's doing a good enough job explaining why Jordan Peterson only talks to those, pink-haired college students whose most important issue is getting conservatives off the internet. Because having an argument with those people is easy as fucking shit, right? You know what's hard? Having an argument with Kyle and Krystal Ball on their show. That's why he won't go on your show. That's why you're not seeing Jordan Peterson on Vosh. You think Vosh wouldn't debate Jordan Peterson in a heartbeat? You think that we wouldn't debate? Obviously, we're too small to get a guy like Jordan Peterson, but anybody would, right? Because it's going to be an easy day at the fucking office, right? Like, okay, yeah, you're the guy that gives everybody life advice about why we need to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. I think I've heard that one before. Make my bed in the morning isn't going to solve my fucking problems, guy. Okay. Anyway, like, it's not like he's a serious, sincere guy. He got utterly annihilated in his debate with Zizek. Zizek made fun of him the whole time. He tried to debate one of the world's foremost Marx scholars when he barely fucking comprehended the Communist Manifesto, a very small text and not even close to the bulwark of where most Marxist economics comes from. So he completely embarrassed himself there. He's just not a serious guy. And you can tell that by his complete unwillingness to actually engage with anybody else that's not a college student that's just going to get triggered when he pisses them off. And yeah, I do love Gabor Mate. I doubt that he's that pissed off about his son's internet beef with Kyle Kalinski, though.
Than Jordan Peterson. But yeah, you're 100% right, Zach. The ironic thing is that he really probably realistically wouldn't have received much pushback or that aggressive or intense of a debate were he to go on the Krystal Kyle podcast in the first place. If you guys remember their discussion with Vosh, that was kind of set up as like a debate. Vosh definitely provoked them into doing it, and accused them of being like right-wing grifters or whatever. But then when push came to shove, it was very kids' gloves. It was very polite. There wasn't any serious confrontation or debate that happened. It was more just a civil, very polite exchange of ideas. And I'm guessing that's exactly what would have went down had Jordan Peterson actually followed up on this and come on the podcast in the first place, like he said he would. It wouldn't have been like Kyle and Krystal sitting there finger wagging him or scolding him. They're both very timid people. They're very non-confrontational people, and they're both super polite. So I don't think he had anything to worry about in the first place, which is why this is so pathetic. And yeah, Kyle's sitting here acting like, oh, there's still a chance this could happen. No, dude, it ain't happening. Sorry, bro, but he's not coming back in June. He's not coming back anytime. He only wants to surround himself by other right wingers in his right wing safe space. And yeah, again, because of the fact that I doubt he would have received that much serious pushback at all, I can't even be that upset about this, although I do think it's a pretty shitty and, shameless move from Peterson to just cancel at the last minute, again, after pretending like he wants to engage with the left in a serious way and not just go after, the worst elements of it, essentially straw manning the movement.
100%, right? And I mean, it would have been really interesting to see, like Kyle was trying to preface it at the beginning, our philosophy is very similar. And that's interesting to me because my philosophy on the world is very different than Jordan Peterson. And I imagine that's why his politics are dramatically different than mine. So I would be interested to know like how far down the meritocracy rabbit hole and shit Kyle is still willing to go. Because I've always considered myself to the left of Kyle Kalinske, because he'll go on and say like, if you give everybody healthcare and housing and shit, then I'm all for like a ruthless, bloodthirsty meritocracy. And I'm like, whoa, Kyle, no, we can't just have capitalism once everybody gets healthcare. Like that's a disaster. That's how you lose your healthcare, and that's how you lose the society that we just fought for. Come on, let's play chess, not checkers. But I would have been really interested to watch him flesh out his ideas with somebody who is radically to the right, naturally like fucking, showing his tendencies to be a little bit more generous to Jordan Peterson, because there's two ways to go in an interview. You're either going to be extending yourself to them to be like, oh, I can see where you're coming from, or you're going to be like, that sounds like fascism, like fuck this the whole time, right? We know how an interview with a guy like Vosh or whatever Jimmy would go if they were really butting heads about something. And then you mentioned that Kyle and Krystal are much more I don't want to say docile because that has a negative connotation, but they're just not going to get aggressive with you in an arguments way. Like, and you could tell even when they were coming after Andrew Yang, who's a guy that they liked, like it was extremely polite. Like they were barely pushing back, and then Andrew Yang couldn't handle the heat at all, so he kind of melted down. But they did at least put the pressure on it. So I imagine it would be like, okay, Jordan, we did want to have you on here to discuss some things where we disagree. And I wanted to ask you, you've been very involved in the controversy surrounding, people having the right to choose which bathroom to go into. And, I think it would be very much like that. And, I'm on the left. I think anybody should be able to go into the bathroom. So I would have really liked to watch just how it all went down. But unfortunately, it doesn't look like we'll ever get to.
Yeah, Kyle always references how he has this respect for Peterson when it comes to his more non-political, more like, sociological takes or whatever the hell he dabbles in. But yeah, I agree, Zach. I never really understood the appeal. I've never found myself on the same page as Jordan Peterson. And I've always kind of just found him to be like a phony academic/intellectual type that really got famous off of refusing to use college kids' pronouns. Their preferred pronouns or whatever. So like, what a lame hill to die on. You're basically just some lame conservative Fox News type that disguises yourself as having this intellectual prowess because you know how to speak with big words and have an intellectual drawl. And it just rubs me the wrong way. Like I would rather listen to someone on the right that's just more of like a straight shooting, populist type that sounds like a normal person than some like nasally Kermit the Frog sounding pseudo intellectual piece of shit. But that's just me. I guess a lot of people do find the dude has some decent ideas. Admittedly, I've never read his books. Like I said, I have no interest in that. It sounds like a chore. But yeah, maybe I should familiarize myself a little bit more with his philosophy or what have you. But from what I have, absorbed of Peterson, it's not particularly compelling or impressive or even really that unique. It's just kind of standard, like you said, Zach, make your bed in the morning and What was that really? No, I don't even want to get into that. But he's had some really cringy statements and comments in the past that I would have a field day interviewing him about. But again, I fear that even with the mild pushback from Krystal and Kyle, it wouldn't have been a serious debate.
Yeah, do you know what the appeal of a guy like Jordan Peterson is? And this is what I think is really interesting because he kind of fits into this broader wave of, I don't know. And it's like an interesting sociological thing because we fucked our society so much. And this isn't like a, like, oh, boo-hoo for men kind of a deal. But he seems to have benefited a lot from this like societal anking for fathership amongst a lot of men on the internet. So many people do not have a good relationship with their father. They weren't taught how to do things by their father for any number of reasons, like, always at work, not around, struggling with substance abuse, whatever it was. There's a large vacuum of people. And of course, there's daughters that didn't have their mothers growing up and all that stuff. But Jordan Peterson particularly thrives with young men. And it is that vacuum, that emptiness of where that father figure, I think that they're like craving would be. And you get that in, the make your bed, be, pull yourself up by your bootstrap, practice church, these kinds of like old school paternal kind of conservative talking points that you think are going to be the truths to unlocking your life. And then you have some paternal figure like Jordan Peterson tell you these are the truths to unlocking your life. I think that's like the name of his fucking book or some shit, like 12 fucking steps to unlock your life. And then you see how that's, rising in tandem with somebody like Joe Rogan. Conquer your inner bitch, be a man, work hard. I worked hard and look at where I am. I used to love motivational shit. I used to be up at work, sleeping 5 hours a day only, working with people who were working the hardest, doing all this kind of shit. And it kind of gives you that like amped up energy. It kind of facilitates a father figure, kind of like our show in a way. It kind of facilitates like talking to your homies, right? Like that's how the internet works, right? So I'm not trying to necessarily malign him for that presence, that void that he fills. Just everything about how he's gone about it, I think, is worth maligning. And I think that you have that like Jocko Willink kind of a deal as well. And it's that kind of a void in society that he's able to hold on to, because it's not that he's charismatic. It's not that he's interesting. He's just a kind of cringy dad. And apparently that sells like hotcakes when you've descended from Canada onto America.
Also, not to be too rude to our friends on the right, but they just don't have as many intellectuals that are out there to defend their ideas. So when they do find someone that, again, can kind of fill that void and be like the public intellectual face of the right, they gravitate to them and cling to them because, again, it makes them feel more secure in their ideology to have someone smart sounding regurgitate their talking points in an intellectual, candor. I think that's also a big part of this. Oh, also, one other thing I wanted to mention, because you brought up Joe Rogan, someone in the chat mentioned that I guess Jordan Peterson is going on Joe Rogan's show tomorrow. So it's not that he won't do podcasts right now. It's just that he doesn't have time or energy or whatever to do this specific podcast, which I do have to mention is a little bit ironic given the fact that Kyle Kalinske almost refuses to do podcasts appearances unless they are Joe Rogan. Joe is like one of the only people that Kyle will actually make time for. So not gonna lie, it is a little bit funny to see the same thing kind of happening to him now with a bigger fish in Jordan Peterson. But with all that said, let's take a look at the rest of this.
We can make it work. And I will say to anybody in my audience who was questioning whether or not to have him on in the first place, I normally don't engage with people who I don't believe. So there's some conservative commentators, many conservative commentators, who I don't even think they necessarily believe the things that they're saying. And with those people, it's a different story because it's like you're talking to a brick wall and you're not really going to get anywhere. And if you make a good point, they won't even acknowledge that you made a good point. I do not put Jordan Peterson in that category. I think he means what he says. And that made him an interesting character to me. And as much as people think, maybe some percentage of my audience would think this, oh, you're providing him with a platform. Well, first of all, are we really? Because even though we're pretty sizable, he's even bigger than both Krystal and myself. But also this notion of, don't create a pipeline to whatever odious ideas he might have. Well, you got to have a little faith and understand maybe the pipeline is being created in the other direction. Maybe, even though I have many agreements with him on psychology and philosophy, those political disagreements.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in here quickly because I definitely disagree that Jordan Peterson believes everything that what he says. I think that almost every conservative commentator and a lot of commentators on the left lean into the shit that they know is popular. It's like, why the fuck would this man be brought out of fucking his obscurity to just rail against the trans community in this most vicious, hardcore fashion? Like, do you guys really think he was genuinely compelled out of like, I firmly just fucking, I need to die on the hill that there are two genders and you are the gender that I say you are. And that is law. Like, no, he saw a lane there. He saw that he could make himself relevant there and then start peddling this other bullshit. So I'm not at all in the same camp of people who are saying that Kyle shouldn't have had them on. We just spent a long time saying we would have been interested in hearing how the conversation went. But let's be honest, guys. He's trying to portray Jordan Peterson as if he's like, you know, good faith actor on the right here. And I'm sorry, but that is just not true. It's just not true. It is transparent that this man is in it for money. Okay. This dude went out there and was like, you only need to eat meat and salt when that was popular. Okay. I'm sorry, but I think if you're a doctor, you might be able to think around that. And I know, okay, his daughter has a fucking disease. Most people don't need to be just eating meat and salt. That is not reality.
Yeah, that was one of the most hilarious Jordan Peterson moments for sure, the meat and salt thing. And then he ended up in like some Russian fucking medical center because he was withdrawing from whatever painkillers or whatever he was addicted to, which is, I don't, you know, obviously you don't want to make fun of someone, and I'm not making fun of him, but you know, after you're going to make your whole career off of telling people to make their bed and take personal responsibility, it is a little ironic to find yourself, you know, strung out in a Russian medical center craving benzodiazepines because you couldn't deal with the emotional turmoil or of whatever was going on in your life at the time, which compelled you to, you know, become addicted to that substance. So just saying, you know, maybe not the guy you should be taking your advice from on personal responsibility and how to, you know, pick yourself up out of bed and live a healthy, you know, traditional lifestyle with Jesus Christ or whatever the fuck. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I just wouldn't be surprised at all if it came out that he was like, you know, I don't know. I think he probably like that. We talk about this all the time. Like usually, like if you're super anti-trans, like, you know, he probably has like a fucking, you know, he's probably, I don't know. He's probably got a thing, and not in a bad way. Like I wouldn't have a problem with that at all if you hadn't spent your whole life fucking, you know, crusading against a community that you may or may not, you know, desperately wish you had the courage to be a part of. But that's all I'm saying.
Agreements can be substantive enough and important enough where you take some of the people who listen to him and follow him very closely, and they go, well, that seems to make a lot of sense to me, maybe even more so than some of the things Jordan might say on it. So it's a shame that it fell through. Hopefully, eventually we can make it work. And I guess time will tell, and we'll find out. Hey, y'all.
So I can tell you, Kyle, it's not going to work out. Like I said, he ain't hitting you back. He ain't coming on the show. Sorry, bro.
Yeah, his chances of coming on your show are about the chances that we have of getting you on our show. So hate to break it to you.
Yeah, maybe if you come on our show, Kyle, he'll pay it forward and come on your show. Maybe you got to manifest some good karma in order to get these kind of results you're looking for, bro.
We were mentioned in the same breath as H3 when he did his live stream, which I was like, what the fuck? This is wrong. I didn't even really know who H3 was. I found out, I was like, whoa, these guys are way bigger than us.
Yeah, one time somebody asked Kyle if he would ever talk to us, and he said yes. But then he was like, that being said, I don't really have any plans in the near future to come on anyone's show other than Joe Rogan. So, you know, again, maybe you should manifest some good karma, bro, by paying it forward and coming on a smaller channel to have a discussion about areas of agreement and disagreement. It would be a lot of fun, is all I'm saying. It would be a great deal of fun. We can guarantee that. But anyway, we can probably move on to our next story, although I did think that was pretty funny. And again, you know, despite our, you know, minor criticisms of Kyle or whatever, the onus still falls on Jordan Peterson. The blame still falls on Jordan Peterson. He's the one that backed out of this like a scared little bitch, ran crying, screaming for the hills because he couldn't handle the thought of spending an hour or an hour and a half engaging with people that have mild disagreements with him and would push back ever so slightly. So, you know, again, the real point of the story is that Jordan Peterson is a phony and a fraud, and he's scared and won't talk to people who actually have serious disagreements with him and that are interested in engaging in a good faith way, not just, you know, straw man type, you know, lefty crazies.